in Bendigo, once you buy a curved house, you start noticing there's a few others around when you drive around. I think I've spotted about 6 in Bendigo that have curved windows. None like this. All the ones I've seen have had brick houses, and whereas mine's like a timber clad, and they tend to, what I see, have one big curved window, whereas I have 3, and mine are a little different in the way I operate, because some of mine open, whereas some of the others I've seen might just have one big curve as a feature, or it's not uncommon to see a house that might have a curve across a corner. They have just one little corner window. So at one point in time, there was obviously a window manufacturer in central Victoria that could make them. There's a few houses that have them, but mine are a bit more unique. I have a north, south, and a west wing, essentially. No, I don't have an east wing, so if you look from the top, from an aerial view, it looks like a T. Which means I get blessed with a lot of sunlight. It's a blessing and a curse, depending on what time of season, what time of year. Yeah. Insulation has been added into the walls. As you can see, this part's been, this external piece was replaced, which we haven't done that across the whole house. It's been done on a need basis as to where it is, trying to minimise cost. Also, just trying to reuse the resources that's there, which there's no need to cut down more trees if we don't need to. So in the case of this, external panel comes off, insulation can go on the wall, and it had a breathable wrap put on it. This goes back on. The plaster was removed of the whole house. So actually what happened was the plaster was taken off, the insulation went in, and the plaster went back on. So what that does mean is for some parts of the house, there isn't that breathable wrap under it. It is possible to retrofit that in at the time of doing the plaster, doing your insulation, but we didn't do that. That's quite time consuming, and it doesn't necessarily have the same benefits as...
Would it be really hard to seal?
Yes, yeah. So the point is to do it for sealing, and well, if you can't do it from the outside, it doesn't have the same impact. But in the places where the outside was ripped off, then that has been done. We're not building from scratch. We're trying to rehab the place. Yeah.
Do you think you'll be able to put solar on that roof eventually?
Eventually, yes. Yep. We'll get the roof repaired first. Then I'm not in a rush to do it. I understand financially it's a sensible move. Because of the amount of roof space that I actually have, I'm happy for that to take my time in the hope that maybe in the next 2 years there's a new 500 watt panel which might be a little bit better than a 400 watt panel or something. Only because I don't have an endless amount of roof space. Minimising our electricity usage is probably the focus for us. So we've got energy efficient appliances and the whole house is electric.
Okay, so yeah. I was going to ask you about that. So heating and cooling?
We have, they're all separate split systems. Each curved room has a smallest unit, it'd be about 2 kilowatts. Upstairs has a similar unit, and in the centre of the house is a larger unit, maybe about 5 kilowatts.
Hot water?
So it will be a heat pump. I did some reading, and from my reading I wanted a Sandon or a Reclaim because they're the bee's knees. That's what people rave about. I had asked for that from my builder, and we could do it. However, it comes at a cost, and which cost is always a factor. However, it also comes with a delay. It's challenging to get stock of those. For at least my plumber was challenging to get stock. So my plumber came back with some other alternatives. I said no to the first few that were suggested because I didn't like what they were. However, it turns out that the brand Theremin, however you say that, they have a model, it's the Theremin X Split, it's called, which is very, very similar to a Sandon, without the same price. It's not quite the same. The tank it's not a stainless steel tank, it's an enamel tank. But from a heat pump perspective, it's extremely similar. and that's actually what we'll go with. You can become a window snob. That's the crux of it. And spending an extra $100,000 on your windows might give you the same benefit of spending $3,000 on insulation. So you've got to, or in my case, some amazing curtains. So my windows here are double glazed, and the frames are thermally broken, which means that the frame has it's aluminium on the inside, aluminium on the outside, but there's a small section in between so it's not the continuous piece of aluminium. It'll have a bit of rubbery plastic in between.
So that's new panelling behind you?
Yes, yep.
Did you have trouble matching it?
A lot of trouble? Oh, no. We had trouble, but my builder got his timber guy to come out and he found something that matched it. It's close enough. Once it's painted, you won't notice. What we actually discovered was around the house there was more than one profile anyway. So in parts of the house, they might be, say, 8 centimetres wide, in other parts they might be 12. There's actually 2 profiles in the house, so it matches one of them. It's close enough. Yeah. The major issue we've had has not been getting a replacement for the flat sides. It's about getting a replacement for the curved ends, because these pieces can't be curved. And the curves as they currently are pieces of asbestos. However, recently in the last month, I found a cladding manufacturer in New South Wales that makes aluminium cladding that is in narrower pieces and that can be put around it, which we will eventually get to that. Only from an aesthetic perspective. Aluminium has great durability, not great from a thermal perspective, but it'll be okay. I'm doing it for an aesthetic purpose, and that's fine. The 2 key things are the pelmets and the drains. You can imagine the showers here.
Yep.
And then down here is where you have a channel grate for the shower. However, I wanted to... usually you have one hole and it'll go out to the sewer. I have 2 holes, which is slightly different. My goal is to have a plug, and I can put a plug in either one, and so then I can direct where the water's going to go to. So this allows me to have grey water diverted from the shower, which in effect has my switch is to adjust it is a plug, which is hidden under the channel grate. Yeah, but there will be a lever there.
Okay, so you can let the washing water go.
Yes. This house, as you can see, is unusual in that it's curved. And we've got 3 curves like this, which in this room, that's west. So it feels a lot of western sun. I also get north and south at the same time. So curved glass, I think it looks pretty good, but it comes with some challenges. And the challenges I face with this are probably unusual. No one else probably has this problem, but they can still be adapted to other things. So I can't. The key thing is I can't get double glazed glass. It's not an option for me. So that means I've got to focus on everything to do with improving a window that's not the actual glass. So in what we're going to have is we're going to have curtains. We're going to have floor-to-ceiling curtains, and as part of this renovation being done by a builder, I've had pelmets put in. So you can imagine the curtain will actually nest up into the pelmet because evidence shows that curtains are more effective if you can close off the air gap at the top and the bottom. So that becomes quite a feature of this house actually, those pelmets. A couple of other things about these windows, that because it's curved, it also makes it really hard to put an external blind on the outside, which is a problem I haven't solved quite yet. However, the previous owners actually have what looks like fly screens on these windows, except they don't open. So they're not actually fly screens, although they look like a fly screen. It's a shade cloth. That's what it's functioning as. Yeah, because this window here does open. As you can see, like if you have a fly screen on the outside of the glass, it doesn't do anything. Yeah. So they're probably the key points about the glass.
You have got what flows through though, so you've got the
Oh yes.
side.
So all these curves have cross ventilation on, in this case, a north and a south side, but in the other windows it's an east and a west. Yes. With the design of the curtains that we will eventually get, they curtains are often like locked at one end. Mine won't be, so they'll be able to be drawn across the window, but they will just be able to say block the western side. If that makes sense. So I could, because both ends will be loose, I can position them where I need to. Yeah. Curtains are often like locked at one end. Mine won't be, so they'll be able to be drawn across the window, but they will just be able to say block the western side. If that makes sense. So I could, because both ends will be loose, I can position them where I need to.
This house a lot of times,
yeah.
Because I used to live around the corner and I used to think, well, there's nothing good going on in that house.
Yes.
So what has inspired you to take on this quite difficult rebuild, because the shapes are all wrong? And,
yeah,
well, I mean, the shapes are fantastic, but they're hard to work with.
Extremely hard to work with. In the midst of lockdown, my wife and I had a bit of time on our hands and looking for a challenge. We were looking for a buy house. We weren't necessarily looking for a renovation. The renovation only found us. And look, it was a very in spur of the moment thing in that we've walked past this house many times. I live around the corner, and my wife saw it advertised, and we thought we just got to look at it. And it coincided with us wanting to buy a house. And we walked in here and just thought, wow, it's amazing, and it needs a lot of work. And rightly or wrongly, we thought we were brave enough to take it on. We're close to the end now, and so I think we're happy. But look, it hasn't been easy. We've had a lot of our builder's been great actually, but there've been challenges where you have a tradie who looks at things and goes, "Oh, I've never done that before. I'm not sure if I know how to do that." And it turned out O'Brien Glass were able to organise. They took the measurements, and then it was made by a company in Melbourne, and then O'Brien installed it. So once you get to the point of finding a tradie who's willing to take on the job. So it's an old steel, old tin roof with an unusual pattern to it in that it's flat. And actually underneath the tin is timber, which it's very unusual in Australia to see that. So usually you'd have, say, timber battens, and then the corrugated iron on top of that. This has those rafters, but it's actually got, like, imagine a whole piece of plywood and then the tin on top of that. It does need some minor repairs in a few spots. It's going to get cleaned back and resealed because there's some slight rust in places. If I paid enough money, I could probably get the whole thing replaced, but I'm fingers crossed I don't need to. It seems like it's an example of where the moment you do need to replace everything, it becomes extremely expensive, because finding a tradesperson to do that roof will be hard. In the years leading up to me purchasing it, it had been tenanted, and the tenants had used this house to manufacture some drugs. And it's a concern, but it's something that can be rectified, probably the way to put it. So in our case, it meant that we had the house drug tested. So they take scratchings off the plaster walls across the house, and the results of our test were that we had to gut all the plaster, which was okay because we were already going to do a lot of renovation. It just meant we did a bit more renovation. It will be beautiful in winter. We're thinking that we'll have a lot of drying racks for clothes up here, which means we'll have to get these windows. I mean, they do open, they're not locked. But even if these are open, we'll have a breeze. It'll be beautifully warm, which is great for winter, not so great for summer.
Everything about this house is different.
Yes, yeah, and requires some thought, yeah.